They don't know who we are. We need to be boots on the ground, telling them who we are. And by the way, that does happen on a face-to-face level.
Welcome to Verify in Field, the millwork podcast. Here's Jacob.
Welcome back, everybody, to Verify in Field. Today, I'm excited to share with you guys. Tovi Spero is joining us. He is the Education Director with AWFS and overall a career educator. And I'm excited to talk to him about his background and the work he's doing in education, our industry. So thanks for joining me, Tovi.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob, for having me.
To get started, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit about your background and how you came through your current career, your career trajectory to where you're at now with AWFS.
Sure. I think like a lot of people, my journey was not a straight line. It had a lot of loops. I actually started out as a teacher, as a high school teacher, and taught a little bit of college, STEM mostly, and started out in public schools with public school kids and wound my way across the country to the other side to teach private school. And actually it led me to where I am today because at one place where I taught, they had just started a makerspace, right? Because a lot of schools don't have wood shops anymore, but a lot of them are developing these makerspaces, which has some woodworking stuff, but other stuff. And I had a student that bought some very fancy, Purple Heart and all kinds of other stuff he wanted to make a skateboard with. And I had no idea how to help him. It did break, but he had all this leftover stuff and I didn't know I knew it was nice. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I just started Googling, how do you make wood smooth? And I went on a little YouTube adventure for a few years and started doing woodworking as a hobby. And so when I decided to leave the classroom, I saw this opportunity come up that said it's woodworking and it's education. I said, it kind of sounds perfect for me. Yeah. So I found AWFS and I've been on board for over 2 years now.
Oh, awesome. And so now in your role at AWFS, can you talk a little bit for those who maybe aren't familiar with AWFS? What does AWFS do and what is your role there?
Sure. I'll give you the word salad. AWFS is the Association of Woodworking and Furnishing Suppliers. So we're a trade association in the wood industry. Our member companies are suppliers of machinery, hardware, software, materials to the woodworking industry. And part of what we do is run the AWFS Fair, which is in Las Vegas every couple of years on the odd numbered years. And I do things for both. For the fair, I run our education conference. So that's bringing in speakers from all over the country or sometimes even out of the country to come and deliver sessions or hands-on workshops at the trade show, and also coordinating speakers on our stage. And I also help facilitate our student competitions. So we have our Freshwood student competition where students from all over the US enter and we fly their pieces in and display them. Outside of the trade show, on the association side, I help organize and run our member benefits for member companies, so discounts, things like that. I also facilitate our public policy work that we do. So we work with lobbyists in DC and we actually take a trip out once a year and make meetings with congresspeople, senators, and their staff to really advocate for not just our own members, but to advocate for the whole industry. And so I help facilitate that. And then probably the biggest part of my job, the thing that I do most of the time, is educational outreach. It's really important, not just for AWFS, not just for our member companies, but for the whole wood industry to really develop that talent pipeline from honestly as early as middle school, and really encourage kids to pursue this industry for a career and even know about this industry as a career, because a lot of them don't know about it at all. So that's an umbrella of things I do.
Awesome. And yeah, I know many people maybe are familiar with the fair, but there's a lot more that AWFS does for industry outside of the every 2 years fair. And there's also a lot of work that goes into preparing for that. Can you tell us a little bit more about, you mentioned Freshwood and the student competition, right? So that ultimately culminates at the fair, I believe, every 2 years, correct? But how does that ultimately work? Who is that for and how does that work?
Yeah, it's been going for, I want to say it's been at least 14, 15 years, something like that. And it's open to high school students and post-secondary students from all over the US and Canada. It's really a build-focused competition. We have categories in furniture, in case goods. We always get instruments. We always get different kinds of tables and seating. It's really meant to, first of all, bring the best of the best from the country together and display that work and show the industry like this is the next generation that's coming through, especially on the furniture and case goods side of things. And hopefully as a way of getting these students, and again, when I say students, sometimes they're adults, we do cap it now at 35 years old because we do want to encourage people to participate that really want to pursue the wood industry for a career. We ship all their pieces into Vegas, and we have a whole big booth. We have awards, we have prizes, an award ceremony. And the goal is really to bring these people in and get them to network with companies in the industry. So that's a really big focus, is to spread that word. And we usually have somewhere between 40 to 50 different pieces that make it through the preliminary round to the final, where it's in Las Vegas. But you're right, it is a long process. They have 2 years really to build for the next competition.
Wow. And then you're also relaunching Design It Digital this year, going into the Vegas show as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Design It Digital was a competition that AWFS ran before COVID, but then after COVID got put on pause. I'm personally really excited to help bring that back, because as much as core of our industry are people on the shop floor, people making things, more and more, CAD, CAM, everything digital design wise is so much more important than ever before. And that's one of the really big motivations for why we want to bring this back. It's a student CAD design competition. It's all online. We extended it now to be open even to middle school students, if middle school students are interested, because that kind of software is much more widely available than I think it used to be. The goal is really to reach out not just to existing woodworking programs in schools, but also not woodworking programs, maker spaces, like anything to do with digital design and fabrication. And that's so much more broad than the wood industry. So we really want to advertise and say, hey, you have this kind of skill set, you use AutoCAD or whatever it is, that's us too, right? We want you in wood product manufacturing. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's open now, and we're going to be judging online and announcing the winners by the end of the calendar year.
Awesome. And then you're also involved with SkillsUSA California, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about SkillsUSA and, as an organization, how it works, the work you do with it?
Sure. So Skills is a nonprofit organization, and they're international. So there's Skills USA, Skills Canada, Skills Germany, lots of different chapters all over the world. And it's really not exclusively, but heavily competition focused organization, and competitions related to all sorts of different trades. Specific to us would be cabinet making. And in California, there's also an introduction to woodworking competition, welding and robotics and public speaking and culinary and all kinds of things. So it's a really great organization, and they are one of my understanding now, because I didn't know about them until I really started this job, one of the most wide-reaching organizations with schools and with the trades, especially in the U.S. Every state and territory in the U.S. has its own chapter. So there is a California chapter. And for I don't know how many years now, AWFS has been supporting them by helping organize and find judges for competitions, reaching out to our member companies to get donations of materials and hardware so that the kids don't have to pay for it when they do their live build. And then also working with people from the industry to actually do industry level designs and plans for the kids to actually build. And again, thank you. I'm going to put you in there, Jacob, because I know you guys help out with it too. I believe also the national one, right?
A little bit, yeah. So yeah, we've helped with the drawings for some of the competitions. And so that's a good point. So just in SkillsUSA, there's a state chapter of it. And then there is a national competition where kind of the winners from each state ultimately come to Atlanta and compete, right?
Yeah. And then every couple of years, there's also an international competition, a global one, and that rotates to different countries each time. So it's really big. I was really excited last year when one of our top competitors from California actually got number 3 in the nation for cabinet making. Yeah, it's exciting. And yeah, every state does it a little bit different, but I know in California, our priority is definitely, we want this industry focused, industry integrated. So having people like Duckworks come in and really show professional drawings, and have some of our members like Bloom donate drawer slides so kids can see real equipment, real hardware that we want them to be familiar with as they pursue a career. So having industry be involved is extremely important.
Yeah. So all of this work really through your whole career and in recent years with AWFS and with SkillsUSA is very much focused on technical education and the trades and woodworking specifically. Why is that so important? And what has kept you driven and passionate towards this for our industry? Why is education of school age people, starting with middle school with design and digital all the way through 20s and 30s, so important for our industry?
For me personally, it's my passion, it's my vocation to work in education and support students of all ages, like you said. I think for our industry, and I know we'll probably talk about this more because we talk very aspirationally, oh, the next generation, and you got to support and everything. But to be honest, it's very selfish for us as the wood industry is to say we need to make sure our companies not just survive but thrive. And that means we need to plan for who's coming up, who's getting trained, who's going to take over. And that's really why this is so important. I think it can seem very to people in industry who don't work with students or do the kind of stuff that I do to say, I'm busy. I'm busy making stuff. I'm busy with my organization. But you really have to think much further ahead, not just as baby boomers retire, but just all the time. Where is that next step coming from? How are you training the next generation, not just in the way that you were trained, but in all the newer technology, the newer skills, the new machinery? As much as we love to say education is such a selfless thing, it really isn't. I think of it as being very selfish. If I want my company to survive and do really well, I need to bring in the best of the best, and I got to train them the way that I need them to be trained to take over.
And I think that's a key point there, because ultimately, AWFS specifically, it is a trade organization for largely the suppliers of our industry. And very much it is a selfish endeavor. Their businesses are dependent on their clients' success, right? And the success of the industry as a whole. And on that front, what are you as an organization hearing from your members that drives the initiative of education being so important? Or what are you hearing from industry? Because I know every week I have guests on here that are talking about talent shortages and workforce shortages, and like we're retiring at a higher rate than we're bringing in. But are you guys getting specific feedback that you're hearing from industry that's driving the direction of what you guys are focusing on for education?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, yeah, we hear a lot of that, especially you can't find enough skilled workers. And then some people I can't even find people that know how to show up on time and stay around. And thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely right. It's selfish, not even just for our members, but for their customers. It's why it's important to our members too. But I hear from a lot of different people. Some people, they want to participate and they want to do it because it's good to their heart. They're further in their career, they own a company and they want to give back. And that is wonderful. And I love to hear that. In terms of how is it changing our trajectory with AWFS and with education, I would say one of the biggest shifts, and this is part of it, kind of ties in a little bit even with my background because I also teach engineering, is because there is going to be and probably will continue to be a huge worker shortage for manufacturing in general and for our part of that. People are automating more, people are upgrading their equipment and things like that. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to need people to run those things. It just means the skill set is going to be very different. And so what I'm hearing from a lot of people is like, we love Freshwood. We love the gorgeous, bespoke, handmade furniture and all that. The majority of the industry is not that, right? Majority of the industry is not really high-end custom furniture. It's in millwork. It's in mass production of furniture. It's in all those kinds of things. And so we really need to prepare people to understand CAD, CAM, CNC machines, like all these things. And so that's been our real big focus. And that includes even workshops, because we also try to facilitate workshops for teachers and students. And my priority is we want them using CNC machines. We want them to understand laser cutters and engravers and some of those widely applicable digital fabrication skills that then when they start using more industry specific software and equipment, there's more familiarity. I don't want to produce hobbyists like myself. That's not how I make my living. And most people can't make their living that way. Yeah, that's definitely been a big shift in the last don't know how many years.
Yeah, and I think also that's one of the specific roles in our industry that is unique to our industry is the engineering, the CAD CAM side of it. And that for manufacturing, as we're getting more automated and getting more CNC heavy, it's a lot easier to translate a CNC operator from another machinist or manufacturing background to woodworking machinery. It's a lot easier to get project managers that have a project management background in something else and translate to this. But the design side and the software that we use for woodworking and millwork is very niche and specific to what we do. And also, it's still really new within the last 20 years that it's proliferated to where it's a given. The our shops are utilizing it. And the current kind of engineers have really grown up with the advent and the adoption of it, in that they learned it after they became a part of the industry. And so we haven't really figured out how to breed from the start that talent. And there isn't really any programs like most other industries, like construction management and manufacturing. There's technical schools, there's things. There's not really any
Right.
programs specifically dedicated to woodworking.
I'll say there are a few, but it's definitely really rare.
Yeah.
And to speak to that, so yeah, one thing that we don't have that construction, as an example, does have is a very robust apprenticeship program. It's something that they do really well, and we don't have that industry wide. So that's definitely a challenge. Is there a federally registered apprenticeship? Yes, there is. It's on the books, it's publicly available. As a company, you can run your own program, but that's also a lot. And then in terms of school programs, I can tell you again, where our offices are based out of Southern California, I know of two industry specific programs really close. One is in LA County, Cerritos College, and the other one's in San Diego County, Palomar College. And those are wood product manufacturing programs, and they do have actual industrial level equipment. And we're not talking about table saws, we're talking about panel processing saws and bigger equipment. They're out there. It's definitely, you're right, it's absolutely not common. And a lot of times you do have to find the related stuff. Like when I talk to students or I talk to teachers about careers, I say to them, take classes on CNC. Might be CNC with metals, but if you can do metals, you can definitely do wood.
Yeah.
Right? Take a CAD class, take manufacturing technology classes. Like those kinds of things are much more common, but again, related but not the same.
Industry at large is not very aware of them or heavily recruiting from them. That's something else that I find is there's so much of our industry are really kind of small operations, and so it's not like large scale manufacturing where they're constantly have a pipeline of talent for these roles. And so a lot of the companies in our industry aren't very aware until, hey, every 5 years I need to go hire an engineer, or I need to go hire this role, and then they're like, where do I get them from?
Yeah, and I think it definitely goes into existential dilemma about, do you poach or do you develop talent? And if all you're doing is just trying to shuffle people around in a very small industry, right, it's not a long-term solution. I'll say my personal opinion, and it is because of my background in teaching, one of the things that I think is really great about that industry is that schools, knowing that they're going to maybe not retain people long-term, but very often could, you take on student teachers, you take on people brand new to the industry, and you're responsible for training them. And sometimes they stay on and they get hired, and sometimes they don't. And I would love to see something closer to that as a model for us, where you have people that are in a community college, they're taking classes, and at the same time, they're working part-time for a company or in an apprenticeship at a company. And yeah, they're new, they don't know a lot. You're teaching them what they need to know. Unlike education, the education industry need those people anyway. So you're probably going to hire them on full time, and then you've trained them from the ground up exactly the kind of employee you need them to be. So it is a very different model than I think a lot of wood industry companies do currently. It's definitely something I think we need to do more of.
Yeah. What else do you think just the industry at large, those that are listening to this, or owners or leaders in a millwork shop in the US and at large, what can we do better to support education and workforce development?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that a company or an individual can do. I'll give a shout out to SkillsUSA again. I think it's probably one of the better ways of getting connected with high schools and colleges that have woodworking programs. And I say woodworking as, yeah, it might be a construction program, but they have some cabinet making related stuff in that class, or maybe a little tiny bit of millwork even in high school. Because if you volunteer, and I'm not saying it's not work, but if you volunteer to help run a competition or even to donate your excess materials, something that's just sitting around in your warehouse, some spare plywood, whatever it is, it really develops a longer term connection with that region and with the schools in that region. So that way, first of all, they know your name, they know your company, maybe they know your product. It doesn't hurt if they go into the industry later and you want them buying from you. So that's me talking to suppliers. But even for shops where you're actually making wood products, that it could be your next employee. Again, you don't know, but because we do have such a need, you need to figure out where these hubs are, right? And they're not everywhere. And instead of having to do all that legwork yourself, which is a lot of legwork, you can go to a SkillsUSA, you can go to an AWFS, you can go to some of these kind of in the middle organizations that try to bridge that gap between education and between industry. Like that's what we're here for. And we can direct you to schools. You're someone in, say you're a shop in Utah and you're looking for people. And it's like, well, because we do Freshwood and we work with a lot of not only high schools, but also colleges that have woodworking programs in Utah, I can give you a list of names. That's the real value of it and a time saver. So I would definitely say, yeah, volunteering for Skills USA is absolutely the right thing to do. Supporting other kinds of competitions also. Competitions are good because in some ways they're really short term. It's not like it's a continuous thing. There's a season for it. Same goes with Freshwood, design and digital, all that kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily something that you have to be doing constantly, but it's still a good touch point. The other thing I would say is working with your local community college to try and develop a program that doesn't already exist, right? If you're in a part of the country or your state where you do have local trade schools or colleges, but they don't have exactly what you do, they don't have millwork or whatever it is, but they might have manufacturing, they might have all these other related things, work with them, try to connect them to your supplier. Where do you get your equipment from? See if you can get them some discounts on equipment or materials, really help them develop that program, because if you help them develop it, that provides a pipeline for you. And that is something that you can do consistently. And then there's lots of little things. Talk to your local high school, volunteer at a career day, talk to kids about what you do every day. I go to career fairs a lot, actually, not for what I do specifically, with lots of examples for industry type career jobs. And yeah, I think those are some of the things that are not necessarily easy, but definitely really good ways to interact with schools and students to work on your next worker.
Yeah. So just get involved, definitely connect with the trade organizations and like Skills USA, like AWFS. I think that's a good thing because you guys are basically aggregating a lot of resources and data that can be useful in a time of need for the industry that don't have the resources to do that themselves.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't use a job board. We have a job board too. That's great. They know about all these other industries. They don't know who we are. We need to be boots on the ground, telling them who we are. And by the way, that does happen on a face-to-face level. Students are local. So you don't need to go travel out of state and go through a whole bunch of expense and all this kind of thing. You just have to reach out to your local school district and ask them, hey, do you have this? Oh, you don't? Would you like some help setting it up? Can I help in any way? Yeah, and schools eat that up. They really want any kind of interaction they can get with industry.
Awesome. Looking ahead, what are you seeing in career and technical education coming towards us that maybe is changing? Is anything that is changing that you see coming down the road that's different from the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already been an evolution of a process, but I know from when I was in school, and at the time I was in school, they had already really devalued a lot of the trade programs. So I didn't have some of those opportunities like other people did, but it's definitely starting to come back. Schools are very interested in starting programs, including woodworking programs. A lot of that is tied to federal funding. There's lots of money that the federal government can supply to these schools in order to buy equipment and start a program and things like that. So there is a real appetite for it. Now, it might not be called woodworking, and I think that's one of the key differences. You go to some schools and they have a wood shop and they're turning pens and they're making cutting boards and like that kind of small fun, but again, hopefully not offending anyone, in my opinion, hobby type of stuff. Unless you are a manufacturer of thousands and thousands of cutting boards, you're not probably making your living that way. So I think the real transition needs to be from wood shop to wood manufacturing program. That's a really big change. And we want kids exposed to panel saws. We want them exposed to CNC machines. That's the stuff we want them to be working with. And that might not be in a woodworking shop, might be in a maker space. It might be in a robotics lab or some of these kinds of things. So that's been a real shift. And it's still shifting. And as the old guard is retiring out in education, we do need people to step in. By the way, it's another way of getting involved. If you want to moonlight as a teacher, there's a huge need for teachers that are familiar with manufacturing and specifically wood product manufacturing. If you know that's something maybe you want to do, you're interested in, you're at the end of your career in the industry and you want to switch and you're familiar with all that kind of equipment, that's huge. Yeah, I hear all the time from school districts, even if they want a program, they either can't find a teacher to teach it, to have the students. Maybe they need to double up and it's not just exclusively wood, or they're going to call it something different. They're going to call it engineering. It's not exactly engineering. It's wood product manufacturing and other stuff. So I do see a lot of that in schools. It's not a traditional wood shop, but I don't personally think that's a problem. We can't take advantage of kids just being pushed into it like they were decades ago, right? When woodshop was ubiquitous. We have to target the kids where they are, and they're in maker spaces and engineering classes and manufacturing classes. That's what's coming up.
Awesome. So for those that maybe are listening and are like, hey, okay, this all sounds great. How do I start? How do I get involved? How can I do some of these things that Tovi's telling me? What's the best way for them to reach out or find out or explore the resources to get involved?
Yeah, obviously, always feel free to reach out to me, AWFS, and honestly, whatever trade association is part of your industry. Doesn't have to be me. Places like AWI, KCMA, like all these associations are great resources for networking for education. I would say if you're interested in SkillsUSA, if you go on the SkillsUSA website, they have publicly available every single chapter head, the person that runs that whole state. And they are always super excited to hear from people in industry, whether that's something simple, we would love to donate some raw materials for your competition, or we need someone to help run cabinet making. There's a huge variation in that. I would say definitely reach out to SkillsUSA. And then I know it's probably going to be controversial, but use AI. Use AI and ask it, what are local school districts, and give me a contact person in their CTE, Career Technical Education department or program, and just reach out to them. And that can be someone at the college level or the high school level. For middle school, they'll just be happy if you show up and talk to the kids for 30 minutes or an hour, or run a workshop, a little hands-on workshop with them or something like that. So AI can be a really good tool for saying, okay, in this region, these zip codes, whatever it is, give me a list of the local schools. You could even try to ask it who has some woodworking classes or manufacturing classes. Yeah. And then look at competitions, all kinds of different competitions, whether that's AWFS or not. It's a great way to really interact with especially talented, high-level people that are interested in the industry.
Awesome. I appreciate that. We will link as many of those resources as we can in the show notes. So if you're listening, we'll have links where you can go to AWFS and go to SkillsUSA and find out more. Tovi, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing about your story. Thank you for all the work that you're doing for our industry and for education, and look forward to having you on again in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verify in Field.